Welcome to The Abundance Effect, where we empower ambitious women with practical tools to live their most rich and fulfilling life in business and beyond. I'm your host, Larisa McCoof. Let's get started. Welcome back to The Abundance Effect. Today's episode is a little more personal and honestly one I've been really looking forward to for a while because I am sitting down with my brother. I can't call him my little brother because I think technically he is bigger than me, but he's certainly younger than me and someone that I've watched grow, evolve, and make some really big decisions about the direction of his life along the way. Now, he has spent years as a teacher, working with young people, shaping minds, navigating real-world challenges, and now he's in the process of transitioning into the military. So he is stepping into a completely different kind of environment that demands a different level of discipline, clarity, and responsibility. And a couple months ago, I think one of the things that we do in our family is when we're driving, we call our mom, or we call each other. That seems to be when we talk to each other whenever we're driving. And one day, my brother Andriy, he called me and he's like, "Hey, Larisa, let's talk. I'm driving." And so we had a great conversation. And I don't even remember exactly what we talked about, but I remember thinking, this conversation needs to be on the podcast, or at least some of the things that resulted from it. Even though we have a lot of differences in our background, we have a lot of similarities in our passion for personal growth, human psychology, human potential, personal finance, and just, I think, a genuine curiosity for how things work. So today, it's not just going to be a conversation about cool stuff that brothers and sisters talk about. We're going to go deep. We're going to really look at the role identity plays. This is like a through line, the mindset, the decisions, and how you carry yourself across different seasons of life. So let's get into it. And I just want to say thank you for showing up here today.
Yeah, no problem. If I'm talking with you and hanging out, and except now we're recording it, so if you say anything mean, there's going to be evidence. It's going to be
okay. And I think I actually forgot to officially introduce who this is. This is Andriy Prokopchik, or Andriy Prokopchik. I can't say Andy because that's not how I know him. He's my little Andriy. For people listening, I know a lot about you, but most people don't know a lot about my brothers and sisters. So tell us a little bit about your story. Where have you been? What have you been doing? And what is shifting right now?
Yeah, I mean, so hi everybody. Happy to be here. For those people who've known me a while, will say I'm quite the character. I've done a variety of things. Whenever I talk about my resume, my students always tease me and say it's as if I'm going for 100% achievement score. I've worked in a liquor store. I've worked in a lumber yard. I was an equipment operator. I worked in sales for a bit, maintenance at a hotel. That was my first job out of high school. I got a job at a company called ClearTech, wonderful company. But there's this guy there, George, and George would always say, "Andy, you don't want to work here. Andy, you don't want to work here." And he said, "Okay, well, if you had to go to school, what would you want to go to school for?" And I said, "Well, I always wanted to be a teacher. Never was smart enough to do it, but I always liked the idea of me being a teacher." And he said, "Well, what are your grades?" I said, "Well, I upgraded my grades. I was trying to get into power engineering at SAS Polytechnic, wonderful trade school. But, it's so competitive. I think there was like 300 and some applicants a year, but only 30 seats. Actually, in that process, the woman I was dating at the time was like, "Hey, well, you have ADD, you get accommodations, right?" I said, "But I don't have ADD." And she was like, "Buddy, come on, like talk to my doctor." And yeah, clearly, and going through my old report cards and comments and stuff like that, it was like, oh yeah, he's got it. He's got it bad. So saw the doctor, got some medication to help me focus. Kind of gave up on the whole power engineering until George kept hassling me about going to school. He said, "Well, what about university?" "Oh, book an appointment with an academic advisor." I booked an appointment with an academic advisor. George, he definitely one of the most influential people in my life, even though he was only in it for a very small time. But he said every day, "Andy, did you book an appointment? Andy, Andy, it's free." And then finally, there you go, George. I booked the appointment, took a couple night classes, crushed it, went in to apply for the College of Education the next year. And 4 years later, got my degree in 2020. I mean, going from a variety of different jobs, different skill sets, And then all leading up to me going to university, getting my bachelor's degree in education. And then after things with COVID kind of died down, I started substitute teaching. And I got a call one day saying, hey, would you want to move down to Outlook, Saskatchewan and teach at a school called LCBI? And when I drove into LCBI and did my interview, I noticed that the staff were really great. They wanted to be there. And I taught at some schools where like you go into the break room and you guys are not happy. You guys don't want to be here. But at LCBI, the teachers were just so excited to be there and share the knowledge with the kids. And so, yeah, I loved the school. I loved the atmosphere. Principal Jennifer Ridgewell, wonderful woman, like one of the most hardest. She'd give you a run for your money, like genuine, like this. She does not shut off. Luckily I got offered the job, moved out to Outlook, and then one of the things that always kind of stuck in the back of my mind was joining the military. I always wanted to join the military, always. But, one thing or another, didn't pan out. And in Canada, the recruitment process is very extensive. So my process took me about 2 years. The reason why I signed up was I said, if I don't do it now, I never will. So I really pushed the application process. I really tried to speed it up. And yeah, now I'm a part-time military reservist, although it's feeling more and more like it's full-time because I keep coming in for more and more days a week. But then also, still teaching full-time, loving it, living in a very beautiful part of the country and volunteering in the community. I know I didn't really mention that throughout the rest of this, but, volunteering has always been a big part of my life where, you have to give back. That's one thing Dad always stressed was community is wonderful. You love being a part of a community. You have to give back. And it's not just money. You got to give back your time, right? So yeah, that's a very, very condensed from where I started to now.
Before we get back to today's episode, registration is now open for the Morning Magic Challenge. Join us June 15th through the 19th from 6:30 to 7:30 a.m. Eastern for 5 powerful mornings designed to help you reconnect with yourself, your goals, and what matters most. Whether you join us for one session or the full week, you'll leave with greater clarity, focus, and momentum. The registration link is in the show notes. Now, let's hear from some of the women who have experienced the Morning Magic Challenge for themselves.
These calls every day have had such a profound effect on not just me, but my whole family, my whole business, my whole life, how I show up.
Doing this work helped me to imagine and being comfortable with knowing what I want, saying what I want, not being apologetic for what I want.
Starting my day in such a positive manner was really helpful. I was no longer waking up and just starting the day. I'm waking up, planning my day. I just get in a right mindset to be productive and happy and ready to take on anything that comes my way.
When I started with the morning calls, it was about the community and the consistency and holding me accountable for certain things.
I can create my own expectations for who I am and how I show up, and create the relationships that I want. It has a profound impact.
This helped me to identify the part of me I felt missing. The way I spoke changed. The way I interacted with my family and friends changed.
I've gotten so many positive results. I feel like I've stepped into myself. I'm the most confident that I've ever been in my life. I've stepped into a new level of peace, re-entered my independence. I feel so much more aligned and I really do feel abundant.
I had that support to start off my day in that different energy. It was just next level. The group, the support, these calls that you feel safe, that you can feel whatever it is you need to feel.
I was just writing okay, what's really important to me in 20 years, and I write down, I have a group of like-minded people that we meet as frequently as possible. I really like to start my day this way.
I'd like to go back to, you were talking about when you first went to your school that you currently teach at. You'd subbed at many different places, and you could tell people were punching the clock. I've worked in the school system. I've worked with all kinds of educators, and there are some amazing, amazing teachers out there, and there's others that have put the hours in and just want their pension.
Yeah.
Right. And do you think that the attitudes and the energy and the spirit of the other teachers influenced your passion for teaching? Like, I've always loved teaching. I'm not a formal teacher, but like teaching is what I do. Teaching is what our mama did. Teaching is something clearly that's in your bones. But do you think that attitude influenced your passion for teaching, or do you think it was just already there? It definitely
was already there. Because I struggled in school, you have this tendency to think if you're good at something, you do it. And if you're not good at something, you don't do it. And I was bad at school. So I was like, I don't belong here. A lot of my teachers were relatively dismissive of me. I always like that idea of saying, I want to be the teacher I wished I would have had. And that was the passion that got me through my education, my 4 years in university. That passion of being a good teacher was really there. I've always tried to find joy in what I've done. There's obviously a bunch of jobs that you don't like. You know, obviously if those bad aspects start stacking up higher than the good aspects, then you got to be like, okay, you know, maybe you got to find something else. But with LCBI, it was almost like finding like a kindred spirit. I was like, these are the people I've been looking for. And then when I met my principal, and you know, I got this read on what kind of woman she was, what kind of things she does. It was like, okay, I need to be a part of this. And when you have somebody who's in a leadership role like that, you know, it definitely does raise your goal for yourself, saying, okay, if I can be, you know, half as involved, that's going to be a huge undertaking, but you know, again, a huge accomplishment. So, you know, doing that interview at LCBI, meeting the staff, meeting the admin team, I definitely was now like, okay, this is good. This is what I've been working towards.
And so what has working as a teacher taught you about people that I think a lot of people don't see? What kinds of things have you noticed about young people, mindset, discipline, confidence?
Some years, you know, it's definitely a different cast of characters with different and unique skill sets and challenges with, you know, the accommodations you have to do within your lesson planning and your activities. You'll have a really academically driven class, right? You got to give something that can help push them forward. And in education, especially at LCBI, we really try to emphasize the importance of intrinsic motivation with the kids, not just learning because, well, you got to learn this, but it's like, hey, how can we show you the benefits of knowing this information? And not only the benefits of knowing the information, but even the process in which you master a topic or you study a subject. Here's the value in what I'm saying. Here's why you need to start learning about these kinds of things and start developing your work ethic. So again, you're dealing with a group of high achievers. That's great, but not every kid is a high achiever. And you don't want the other kids to feel othered, right? That was me. And this is where they run the risk of losing that benefit of being at school because they're all getting it. I'm not getting it. I shouldn't be here. I'm just going to sit here quietly with my head down and try not to get noticed. But good luck with that in my class. I notice everyone.
How do you ensure that students don't get overlooked? How do you ensure that students do get noticed? And I think it's so easy. We have cell phones, we have technology, we have all these things to integrate us in society, yet people, especially young people, they're more disconnected and more lost than ever before. And I know that's something we've talked about. You're like, I want to make sure my students, they have the help. Like, how do you facilitate that environment?
Yeah, I mean, a big part is sharing my personal stories. You know, when I tell kids I have struggled spelling, even to today. So saying, hey, you know what, guys? You might feel like you don't belong. Like, that's how I felt. And I felt like I was bad at school and I should be here. That's totally wrong. Totally backwards. If you struggle with something, it's the place to suck. It's okay to suck here. This is the place where, you know, if you don't know how to read out loud, or if you struggle reading out loud, you get nervous reading, or you get nervous talking in front of people. This is the place to put them to practice and struggle as it, because this isn't something that you're born with. This is something that you develop. And some of these kids become so disenfranchised that by the time they get to high school, they feel like they don't belong, and it's almost like I'm just taking up space here. So that's all I asked the kids. I said, who needs practice reading? Who's bad at reading? Who's better? Who needs practice, right? And developing the classroom culture where the students come into my room saying, okay, I know I can't be making fun of anybody for their spelling. I can't be making fun of anybody for their reading. This is the place to work and develop. It's kind of like you wouldn't make fun of somebody who's, you know, an unhealthy weight going to the gym, right? Like you wouldn't do anything. Good, you're here and you're working on it. Good, that kid showed up to class today. He's going to be working on that kind of stuff. So classroom environment, 100%.
And I love it's so simple, the classroom culture, but really facilitating from many different angles. Do you think discipline on the student's part is a requirement, or I want to like move into the discipline?
Okay, so
arena?
I have a really funny way of dealing with the kids, where I always tell them like I yell the most. I'm the teacher that yells. I yell at you guys the most, and the kids always laugh. They say, "Oh, but Mr. Prokopchik, you don't really yell at us. You're nice." I have this thing where, you know, since I was a kid, as an undiagnosed ADD, dyslexia, as you know, going through, I would do something ridiculous, and that would result in me getting chewed out. And I remember being like, "Hey, I get it. I did wrong. I know I did wrong." Our school used to pull us up to the front of the room, and they'd yell at us, and then we had to stand there with our heads down while the entire class looked at us. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. No way. No way, right? So when I interact with students who are a little bit more active and, maybe they're not doing their work, they know they did wrong. I know they did wrong. I don't need to give them a lecture. I'll say it with a maybe an over-exaggerated tone where I think everybody's smiling. And obviously some students, who like to, remain anonymous, not really great in my class. So I kind of, I guess, force them to experience that, hey, we messed up, you messed up, we messed up. We can laugh about that. We need to acknowledge it. I'm a teacher, that's my job. And usually if a student's really having a tough time, like a really tough time in class, you need to change your pace. You need to change your environment. I'll usually ask them to go for a walk. That's my thing. Go for a walk. And sometimes kids will go for a walk and they'll be back in 5 minutes. If the kids upset me, I'll be like, no, go for another walk, come back in another 5. But then what I'll do is I'll ask them to stay back. And that's not like, you need to get serious. So usually it's, something's going on and we just got to figure out what that is and say, is everything all right? Like, how are you doing? Nobody wakes up and wants to be a burden. Something's obviously going on that's leading that student to act that way. And when they look and say, like, Mr. Prokopchik has every reason to be mad at me, and I go, how are you doing? Like, what's going on? What's up? And they're thinking, I was going to get yelled at. Oh, you're not going to yell at me. Oh, okay. Well, I guess, sometimes this is going on or whatever they fill me in, and then we try to find a solution to, I would say it's just a matter of like finding what the other problem is in their life. And have a more holistic view.
And I really love that holistic approach. I think it's really, really healthy. And then all of a sudden you're contrasting and going into the military where like discipline is like 101. I was talking to Lukian, my son, yesterday, and we were talking about something like the military. I told my husband, I'm like, I don't think that Lukian would do a good job in the military. And my son's like, nope, I absolutely wouldn't. He totally agreed because he doesn't like following directions explicitly. And my husband's like, you know what they say?
That's kind of a barrier. Yeah.
They say jump, and then your response is how high. It's not just like, oh, I don't know if I'm in the mood. Like, there's an order.
Not today, Master Corporal. Not
there's
today.
An order. There is discipline is a foundational aspect in the military. I've talked to a lot of people from the U.S. that have served in the armed forces. And I think the consensus is, even though it can be a very difficult thing for a lot of people to go through, it's also one of the times where so many people have the most pride. Why? Because they have the highest level of expectation, right down to things like making your bed. It has to be done in a certain pristine, precise way. You don't show up in a sloppy uniform. They have expectations in how you show up, and the level of discipline expected really does allow us to raise our standards for ourselves and really rise to a level of something that's possible that may not have otherwise been possible. It's for extreme circumstances in many cases. I love the nurturing and the holistic approach in education. And you do it with humor, you do it with your own style, and you're entering this other world. So talk about the contrast in discipline in these arenas and what you notice in terms of how people step into discipline in your new world, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm a intelligence officer for the Canadian Armed Forces, work for the Navy. As far as, people are still people, right? And I think what I found with teaching compared to the military is actually there's a lot more similarities than I expected, where you need to give people the tools to be successful. And that's where teaching in the military are very similar. Now, it's the delivery that's very different, but when actually working at the unit, oftentimes it's just a matter of saying, okay, well, what's the problem you're having? How can we find a solution? And that's what's really rewarding about being part of the Canadian military, especially on the officer side of things, because a lot of those lessons still hold true. That I learned in education, where it's like, okay, well, if somebody's messing up, and I think it also goes back to that holistic approach. If somebody's messing up, or somebody's, that grumble that I don't like my job, or I don't like this, whatever. Oftentimes, the approach from the officers is, okay, so what's going on? Are you not feeling necessarily fulfilled in your work? Is everything okay? Within the Canadian Armed Forces, we have so many supports there for, mental health. We're obviously working in a high stress environment where, as opposed to the students who, okay, well, you didn't do your homework. Okay, well, now Mr. Prokopchik's disappointed in you. Well, in the military, if you don't do your job, well, there's obviously much serious ramifications for that. It's a lot of similarities, but obviously the biggest difference being the delivery of the.
Well,
of the
you're
lesson
stepping
material.
into this environment where decisions and the ability to make quick, definite decisions, it matters, because it's not just you. It can impact and influence a lot of other people. There's a huge ripple effect. And how has that started to shift how you think and how you show up personally in your life, knowing that you have this level of responsibility?
I am relatively still new in the Navy, so I'm not some battle-hardened veteran. It's training. It's training for saying, okay, if this happens, what are you going to do? One of the reasons why I signed up for the military was I always heard people say, oh, well, if they ever invade our country, I'm going to go defend. I said, I don't even know if I have what it takes to defend our country. I want to go find out. So, that's why I joined. And you don't know how you're going to react to certain situations until you're in them. And the best thing you can do up until that point is just prepare. That's kind of where I feel like I'm at right now. I mean, okay, cool. So I spent a month and a half in a forest in Quebec, getting yelled at, running through mud. Cool. Is that going to transfer over when, if things get serious? I don't know. All I can do is keep preparing, keep running through those drills, and, try to become a version of myself that hopefully will be able to be an asset in those situations.
And I love that you said become a version of myself that will be an asset. When you look at your identity today, right? When you look at yourself and how you feel about yourself, how you perceive yourself, how you acknowledge the value that you bring to this world.
Constant imposter syndrome. Constant imposter. I mean, I never really thought of imposter syndrome as a concept until probably until I seriously started becoming a teacher, thinking, wait, you put me in charge of kids? Oh my goodness. What is going on? And as the years go by, obviously, right, you get better at what you do. You get better at your trade. With teaching my first 2 years, I'm going to apologize if any of the kids are watching. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. Okay. I try my best. But you get better. But, even in the military, I've been there a year and a half. I still feel like I know nothing, right? So it's that the Dunning-Kruger effect where the more you know about a certain, or you study a certain subject, the more you realize you don't know. So there's definitely a certain level of humility I have where I'm like, no idea, but all right, I'm willing to give it a shot. So let's go. I was listening to a Jimmy Carr interview. When you listen to the same audio books, or you read the same books, or you listen to the same speakers multiple different times, and you get something different from it each time. Well, I've seen this Jimmy Carr clip so many times, but he says people's tolerance for BS practically drops down to zero when they have 6 months to live. And he says, in that way, we should be living our lives every day. And I was like, what a concept. I've never even thought of it. But really.
And I love that that you listen to things over and over again.
Wow, we're related.
Yeah, I do. There's certain audios, there's certain articles. It's like we're related, but it's a practice I encountered from Bob Proctor, because he would have us read the same thing or transcribe the same thing or study the same thing over and over and over
look
again.
At you, highbrow.
You learn it
you're
once.
highbrow. You're like,
but by
Bob
the
Proctor
30th
told
time,
me this, and I'm like,
30th time.
The vulgar comedian Jimmy Carr. I was watching
It's
on
true.
Facebook. It's yin and yang.
Same thing. But repetition. It matters, right? It matters. And I think however we do step into this, I think our influences have definitely been different, but we found a way to work with the work and make it mean something, because there's a reason that we do things. There's a reason God put us on the planet. We may or may not be able to articulate it. We may or may not know what it is, but I firmly believe. We titled The Abundance Effect. The subtitle is Health, Wealth, Relationships, and Legacy, because legacy are those little things that you leave behind. It's the fairy dust you sprinkle in your environment. It's the It's the passion projects you have. It's the convictions you have. And when you can make that difference to one person and another person, and then maybe 10 people or 100 people, and create those ripples, that changes the world. And it gives our life meaning. Not everyone's going to notice. They may not even comprehend it, but at least when you know you've done something good, you can lay your head down on your pillow at night. Just like you said, 6 months left to live. You don't have tolerance for mediocrity. You don't have tolerance for things that aren't aligned because you want to do more of what matters. And what would you say right now in your life matters to you?
I'm so blessed to have such wonderful students. I mean, some days they can drive me a bit crazy, but I mean, wonderful students. And when I look at the potential that these kids have and the skills that they're developing and just the world that they're born into, obviously that's a double-edged sword, right? We live in such a magical time where there's so many opportunities out there, but at the same time, one of the scariest times with global conflict being what it is and global leaders, tensions are rising. And that's a big drive for me. I know we got back from the Easter break, and one thing I love about my coworkers and the kids is we always come back, and you know how some people are like, oh, how was your break? And some people are always like, it wasn't long enough. Oh, it's already over. Like, right? Whereas we come back and they're just like, oh, I missed this place so much. I'm like, oh my God, how are you doing? Like, I still get excited to go to work. And I would say that's actually a driving motivation of why I joined the Canadian Armed Forces. There's bad people out there. I don't want nobody to hurt those kids. And I want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of the defense. Unfortunately, I don't have any kids of my own. Always wanted to be a dad. Maybe someday, but until then, that love and that protection, I guess, is going to go to my students.
That's beautiful. One of the things I know that we had talked about in the past is this idea of bringing private sector mentality to the public sector, where you find ways of doing things that may be more simple, more streamlined, that are even unconventional in a certain arena, but you cross-pollinate and you bring these resources together because you pay attention, because you see different ways, because you see the possibilities, and because you are mission-driven.
What happened was, because I was doing so much volunteering initially when I started teaching, and I was started in the military recruitment process, so I don't have a lot of time. I do not have a lot of time. I got to get this stuff done because I got 5 other things I have to do after work today. So how do I make this as efficient as possible? And I was like, efficiency. And then I was like, okay, well, military is a standstill right now because I need to get put on my basic training. And I was like, I'm still teaching. And then I was like, okay, but I'm done. I'm like, what do I do with my spare time? I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go paint a room in my house, right? Well, why don't I just buckle down? And that kind of maybe ambition might be lacking in some public service jobs, that ambition. But I was saying, well, what if I just buckle down and got all this work done and just said, well, what else needs to get done?
Yeah. Well, and I love that when you ask good questions, it's amazing how all of a sudden the answers can and will come to you. How else can I get this done? How can I get this done faster? What's a better way to do this? How can I be more efficient, more effective, more relaxed? How can I have more fun with this? I think those are simple questions that I think we can all ask more of. Whatever your circumstance is, I think we can all start to ask even better questions. And that's a really, really, really good question. So I have some rapid fire questions. These are just like, give me the answer. Okay, rapid fire. That means
get
fast.
Get the blooper reel ready. This is gonna this can go one of two ways.
They're not crazy. They're things like I'm geeking out on.
Okay? All right.
What's your favorite quote?
Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you already have.
Ooh. What's your favorite book?
Great Gatsby. There's a line in there I really like. It says, I'm both within and without. And what that's referencing to is he's looking upon the apartment and I'm part of a group, I'm part of a clique, but I don't feel like I'm part of a clique. And I've definitely felt that sometimes. So
okay,
yeah, Great Gatsby.
A piece of money advice that you'd like to give someone that's young. Financial advice.
Well, I teach financial literacy, and one thing I love is if you ask any one of my students, when should you start saving for retirement? It's yesterday. You should have started saving yesterday. That if you don't take care of yourself, nobody's going to come in at the 11th hour and take care of you.
The thought leader that you respect the most?
I'd say Warren Buffett. I mean, obviously a tremendously successful individual. He's amassed a lot of wealth, but he also gives back to the community. He's very humble.
Cool.
Yeah.
And because this is the abundance effect, what does abundance mean to you?
having more than you need. And that can be a really wholesome feeling. Having more money than you need, right? Well, what do you do with that? Well, that's when you can start giving back to the world. When you have more love than you need, that's such a wholesome feeling, because you're like, I don't know, I don't deserve this. Why do I have so much love coming in and stuff like that? So yeah, just having more than you need. An abundance of things. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. Before we wrap, do you have any final words of wisdom to share with our audience?
I mean, going back to the whole, if you had 6 months to live, what parts of your life would you cut out? How would you invest your time? If you were to die tomorrow, would you have had a good run? Chase that feeling of saying, okay, time's limited. Fill it with stuff, fill it with things, fill it with places, with people.
Fill it with things that matter. Beautiful.
Yeah. And some things that don't.
You got to have a little fun.